So I'm super excited to introduce you to Melissa Shepard, my guest today, to talk about whatever you want to talk about, right? So we're going to talk about, leadership, obviously. So before I start barraging you with questions, tell them a little bit about you and who you are.
Okay.
So.
Well, my name is Melissa Shepard. I am the practice manager for a pediatric dental office in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I am a wife, and we've got 3 kiddos. I love just watching them grow up and kind of take on this big world, and I totally enjoy soaking all that in. And
how old are they?
It just gives me all the feels. I've got 7-year-old twins.
Okay.
That we have together, and then my husband has a 15-year-old that's with us full time. So keeps us busy. They're all into different things. And
are the twins boy girl?
Boy girl, and then my 15-year-old is a boy.
Okay.
So
well, you got a full house.
We've got competitive soccer going on.
Right.
We've got cheer, tumbling, tennis, even Boy Scouts. So.
I seriously do not know how people juggle all of that. I mean, I know that people have been doing it forever.
Help.
And,
Lots of help.
right. Yeah. So I'm that person that always says, I think you should be 18 before you drive. And that's because I didn't have a bunch of children, right?
Oh, I 100% agree. Having a 15-year-old that's a month away from getting his permit, I'm like, he's not ready.
Okay.
He is not ready.
I thought you were going to say the opposite, like, yes, I want him to drive himself.
I would love that just for the help. I don't know that I can trust him to drive my little ones around.
16's too young.
I think it is. I really do.
When we do the podcast about changing the legal driving age, I'll have you back.
Yes, please do. Please do. I will rally for that.
Okay. Right. So kids, soccer, and it's so super exciting. You just got a big promotion.
I did.
So congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That was it wasn't a slam dunk either, right? Like, so you have worked at this practice. We should give a shout out to Fox Browerman Pediatric
Dentist.
Dentist.
Dr. Fox and Dr. Browerman.
Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Yes.
2 of the finest people I know, by the way.
Absolutely.
They really are. I mean, you know, you're
I'm lucky to get to work hand in hand with them every day.
Yeah.
So
I would totally just like to hang out with them all the time, wouldn't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've been lucky enough to go to dinner with them a couple of times. Every time bam, a couple of hours is gone, and I'm like, oh my God.
They're so real. Like, they're the most real people.
They are. Maybe this could be the part of the podcast where they sponsor us or something, and we could talk about how amazing they are.
Yes.
We'd do it for
Well, my background is marketing, so we'll hit that up for sure.
Nice. So let's talk about it. So you start at Fox Browerman at what age? And so give us the...
I started right out of high school in 2003. I worked as a dental assistant going to school. I kind of thought I would be a dentist or be a dental hygienist. I went to TCC a couple years, and then when I moved down to OU, I realized that all those science classes were not for me, and being a dentist was not in my future.
Yeah, understood.
So I changed my major to business and marketing, and that's kind of how I finished that up. I always came back and worked in the summer and spring break, Christmas break, anything that they could use me for. So
I went to OU, and I was going to be an architect. That was my my whole thing. And literally after 3 days, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so out of my league. So the math classes, I literally ran back to the counselor and said, anything but that. So
yes, that was my experience. So I don't want to take any more science classes.
I got you. So
what else can I do?
Without the science.
Yes,
and the
without
math,
all the science and math.
So you end up working as a.
So I worked as a dental assistant while I went to school. When I graduated, I took a position in their front office and was doing their marketing, and then I took a step back and just was doing their marketing part-time. Which was the perfect schedule. I took my kids to school. I came into the office, was out around town meeting all kinds of new people and getting them to send their little ones to our office. And then I was there to pick them up at the end of the day. So I had my dream job, I guess, until this.
Dun, 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 dun.
Yes. Until they offered me the office manager position, and I thought, well, I definitely have the experience. I've been here long enough to kind of know how the office works. I didn't know if I was fit for that leadership role because I'm a people pleaser, and I didn't really know if I'd be able to have difficult conversations. So
I'm going to go back for a second. So you're in the marketing role. You're doing it part-time. You're super happy in that, and all of a sudden there's going to be a change because the office manager that is there now, has been there for
25 years.
Yeah, I was going to say 27,
yes,
a long
yes.
time. And so she's made the decision that she's going to retire. And so then everyone starts thinking about, oh my gosh, what's next? And so the bench is, I'm not going to say it was a big bench. There was a short list that you were on for sure. And so when you started being interviewed, did you get immediately excited, or were you immediately like, oh my gosh, what was your,
I
your
went through
first?
phases of emotions. I was immediately excited just that they would even consider me for the position. I mean, it's a big position in our office.
Sure.
So you really are working hand in hand with them. You're their right-hand person. You're who they go to. And
Yeah.
so I was immediately excited. And then the kind of intimidation and can you really do that? And,
Right.
you know, have these hard conversations when they come up. So then I was a little bit scared. They gave me some time to think about it. So I kind of did some soul searching, and I figured that you really just have to treat people the way that you want to be treated.
Right.
And if that's a people pleaser, that's being a people pleaser. But I didn't see it as like a negative thought like I did prior to that.
Were you nervous about the idea that you would then be in a different position? I think when a peer gets promoted, it's the most difficult introduction into leadership.
Absolutely.
Don't you think so?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, it's easier when, even if you had that same job, same experience, whatever, but you went to another practice and people didn't know you. That would have been easy. But this one, so you're being promoted in a practice where everybody was your peer. So
Yes.
would you say that's the hardest thing?
It has been the hardest thing, and every day is still like I have to be very intentional about, that balance between these have been my coworkers and friendships that I've made along the way. We've got a staff that lots of them have been there for years, and some of them longer than me.
Yeah.
So just finding that balance between coworker, friendship, and now leader.
Yeah.
And
It's interesting.
every day is still, I have to be intentional about that balance.
Well, when you think of all of the words that you could be using right now, I think that's the word that resonates with me, is the intentionality of it, right? Like that you made some new decisions. So we've obviously been working together, and
Thank goodness.
Yeah. Well, and for me too. I remember in the beginning we had many conversations about what do you want to be known for, right? So you actually sat down and thought about what kind of leader do you want to be, and made some notes on that, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you remember going through all of that? I assume you do.
Yes.
Obviously,
Yes, I do.
yeah. Were you surprised at what came up when you were trying to make those decisions, or did you immediately know this is what I want to be known as?
Yes, I was surprised, but there were lots of things that I knew immediately because I had been with the practice for so long. So I knew, I had lots of experience to say I maybe would have done something different in this scenario or things like that. So I knew that I wanted to be authentic and, just kind of treat people the way that I wanted to be treated.
Yeah.
I didn't know what that looked like because there is boundaries and things that have to be set, to do your job well and still treat people.
Yeah. And I think that's hard, by the way. I think that's the hardest thing in a leadership role, is to figure out what those boundaries are. And so you're also in a situation where everybody's been there for so long that those lines get really blurry, right? And so, by the way, there's not anyone that is ever in a leadership role for a super long time that doesn't have that. So this is for you to look out for in the future, right? Like you kind of get lulled into everything's fine, and then the friendship starts to develop, and all of a sudden then people start to take advantage of that. And if you don't recognize that and make some changes, then you end up with the opposite of what you're trying to accomplish, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I do think that's difficult. I don't think that's an easy transition, but when you were using that word intentional, that makes me super happy, because you can't ever not think about that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not saying it occupies every minute of your day, but you have to really be sure that your strategy matches the outcome that you want, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you've been great at that, though. You're a dream to work with for somebody like me, because not only are you looking for the information, but you actually go do it, right? Like,
yes.
A lot of people go, well, what would I do? What should I do? And then you give them these great ideas, and they're like, oh yeah, they do nothing. And you're like, what?
Oh my gosh. Like, I consider my resources, I mean, you being my number one, I've got some podcasts that I listen to, some books that you've recommended to me, your book, and they are my like go-to. You know, we've implemented some policies and things like that at work that really help set the tone and, you know, give everybody a clear expectation, but definitely having resources in my back pocket to reflect back on and
but I mean,
put to use is,
right?
you know, a lifesaver for me.
Yeah. Well, you've been good to like seek out meetings that you need to go to
Yes.
you know, read books, to communicate, connect with other people. So the personal board of directors that, you know, we've talked about many times.
Yes.
And I'm going to tell you that for me, when I look back on my career, that having that, you know, core group of people that I went to for advice or to ask little questions, like you're talking about, just having somebody in your hip pocket to be able to say, hey, what should I do here? A lot of people don't take the time to do that, but you're doing that. You're creating all those connections and relationships, and I think that's super smart.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think you have to take advantage of those resources and those opportunities, or, you know, you get where it's your way or no other way, and it's really hard to lead.
So tell me a little bit about that, because I happen to know.
You think there's a backstory? Yes, of course
no,
there
it's
is.
not a bad story, but tell me, like, what's tested you already? Like, what is, like, when you look back on the last, you know, year and, you know, really 6 months in particular, what's been a couple of the sticky situations that you're like, okay, this is one of those times where I need to define my leadership by how I'm going to react to this or respond to this, right?
Yes. So I work with 25 women, and, you know, it's easy for us to kind of look at, you know, the picture that we see and not the big picture. And there's been conflicts, you know, with a group of people or maybe just two people. And rather than getting into like a non-productive he said, she said conversation, you know, I've listened to what they've had to say, you know, listened to what maybe someone else had to say. And then instead of the he said, she said, we've come together as, you know, a meeting of three of us to really just address the issues head on. And
Nice.
the conversations have always ended well with like a thank you for listening, thank you for taking the time, like helping me see the big picture and, you know, not just what I'm doing, but what everyone else is doing. And so that's been,
That's
you know,
huge.
a huge.
Yeah.
And it's not the easiest conversation to have, but when you can when your intentions are good and you can walk out of there and know that like everybody is leaving there at least on the same page or with a more open mind, then you feel like, okay, well, that worked.
But it's not, you're right, it's not easy to begin the conversation,
It is
but
not.
too many people start out in leadership and they don't make the decision of what they're going to do when somebody comes to them complaining about somebody else. And so they end up reacting and listening, and all of a sudden it looks like they're siding, and then they have favorites. So you've made a proactive decision to not be that kind of leader, right? And I loved that was one of the things that you said, you know what, I want to be this leader that doesn't buy into the drama, but is able to figure out how to neutralize it in a way that people still feel valuable. And so the method you just described sounds like it's working beautifully, but, you know.
It has. I've been in that situation a couple times, and so far I feel like, you know, we've gotten a better end result than just being a listening ear and just not doing anything about it. You know, someone can come and vent to me and someone else can come and vent to me, but if I'm just there to listen and not really come up with a solution, then, you know, the same problems are going to keep on happening.
Yeah.
So
And that's when it looks subjective, right? It looks like you're siding with someone. So just to unpack this a little bit, somebody comes in and they say, I'm upset about so-and-so, and you you listen to that. Do you tell them that you're going to go bring that other person in, or they pretty much know that at this point, don't they? Okay.
I mean, that's just that's what I put out there, and
Okay.
they know that when they come to me, we're going to come up with a solution rather than just burying it until, you know, the next time. So I've made that super clear. Whenever I first took the position, I met with all the staff one-on-one and kind of explained to them, you know, what my position was and, you know, how I felt like, the differences that I could make, and just really laid it all out there. So
They
would have a just clear expectation of, what to expect from me.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think that's, we're acting like, oh, and I do it so casual. It's a cornerstone of great leadership, though, that people could walk into you and trust that you could navigate that conversation with a good outcome. So that's on you. Good job,
Well,
right?
thank you.
Yeah. I mean, not everybody can do that. Not everybody has that. I'm not going to say skill, but it is a skill, right?
Yeah.
That to be able to, sit there in the fire with two people that are upset and say, well, I'm just going to sit here. You guys work it out. I'm here if you need me. But I think it's got to be easier to do that than it is to let that drama go on for days and weeks.
Well,
right?
then it becomes toxic, and you've got someone, going to, instead of it just being between those two people, you've got them going to other people. And,
right.
There's been a scenario where, in our office, we go to the source, and, in our mind, it looks a lot better for me, as your coworker, to come to you and say, hey, I noticed this, or you didn't do that, or whatever the scenario is.
But that's a decision that was one of your bylaws, right? That you
Yes.
said that we're going to be known as a group of people that goes to the source.
Yes.
Like you're casually saying that, but I want to make sure everybody hears that.
Oh,
right?
yes. And it's made such a huge difference in our office. And when someone comes to me and they've got an issue, that's the first thing I say is, well, have you talked to them about it?
Mm-hmm.
And, there's things that, if someone's uncomfortable talking about something, obviously I'm going to help facilitate the conversation.
Sure.
But I want them to get comfortable and just being sincere and genuine and going to the source as a friend or, hey,
Sure.
I've got your back. Because people get defensive if I have to come to them and say, hey, how come you're not doing a part of your job or something like that. So I think it sets a good tone for everyone to know that we all have each other's back. And where I was going with that, to circle back around, is we had an employee who brought something to my attention. I asked her if she went to the source, and she said no, and kind of walked out and was like, well, Melissa doesn't care, I don't care. That made it back to me.
Oh.
So we immediately had to address that comment and, really explain what that comment could do to a team that's, been putting so much effort into working together better and growing together. So we had a very frank discussion, and kind of in that we talked about she had kind of been underperforming, and I wasn't making excuses for it, but when she got into the conversation and was, well, I can't believe I'm in here because so-and-so and so does this, I was able, that was the perfect opportunity for me to say, well, if you were doing your job and not worried what everyone else was doing, then, maybe we wouldn't have a couple of these other little issues that weren't really big issues, but going into it, it was the perfect opportunity to talk about it.
Well, I just think too many people let the things happen. Like sometimes the gift of discernment serves you right. Some things are so little you don't care. So you are developing that barometer, if you will, of, where am I going to be flexible on that, and where am I going to hold the line in such a way that if I don't, it actually violates the culture that you're trying to create, right? And
yes.
And that's not a clear-cut line, so that's, kind of an ebb and flow, I would imagine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, I mean, and there are times too when the girls will come in and just they will start the conversation like, I don't want you to do anything about this. I just wanted to bring it to your attention.
Yeah.
I'm like, great, like I love that you.
I won the lottery, but don't tell anybody.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
What?
So
yeah.
I love that we kind of have formed that relationship that they know, like I'm either going to correct it or I'm just going to be there to listen.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Well, good. So you are the first one to come in with a giant list of questions. Like, tell me what's on your list. I have I'm going to at the end of this give you these 5 questions and ask you standard answers, and you'll give them to me.
Okay.
But what's on your list that I'm not asking you that you want to talk about?
Well, I talked about the toughest part of the transition, just being, the balance between coworker and leader. the best part about this has been the personal growth. Like every day I'm still shocked that I get to do this. I mean, what I thought was a little bit out of my comfort zone, I feel like I, am like flourishing in this position, and personally and professionally.
Nice.
It's made such a huge impact just stepping out of my comfort zone. And I mean, I've even like set new personal goals that, have maybe even been on my, I'm going to do that
someday.
more, someday. And, but it's like I just crave it now.
Nice.
So, yeah.
I think personal growth is addictive.
Oh my gosh, it is.
It is
It is.
like that, and when you use that word intentional, that the minute somebody dials into that, like whatever I decide I want to do, then that gives me some energy, and then those things start happening. The opposite of that is somebody that sits back and says, oh, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. Oh, and I don't know. I can't imagine that that's as fulfilling.
No, because I've been on that other end, where I had this great job that I loved, and I felt like I was making a difference, and being creative and working hard, but I was working in my comfort zone. Mm-hmm. And now that I'm not, it's like spilled over to every area of my life. That. So yes, it's been
fun to watch too, just so you know.
I love that. I love that because I feel like,
well,
there's nothing I can't do. No.
I know, I believe you. But so we've had this agreement, like that where I would come in monthly or whatever. But
yes,
I think I thought I would come for 8 or 9 months, and after like 3 or 4, I'm like, I'm out, man. She can call me when she needs me. So
I love that.
Yeah,
I love that.
I do too. It's been great.
Well, it's nice knowing that I can shoot you an email or call you.
Or a text,
yes.
or
however, yes.
So here, I will ask you a couple of these questions.
Yes.
So if you had to describe, I don't know if you can remember back to when you made those decisions, what kind of leader you wanted to be known as. Could you tell some of the things what were some of the decisions? So one of them was that you were gonna not let people talk about anyone else.
Yes.
That was one of them. Were there any others that you can think of that come to mind?
I wanted to communicate. I want to be more transparent and communicating with the staff. I think that builds trust, and
that's huge.
So, just being more in tune that we're all doing this job together, and let them, I guess, just really be transparent. But again, it's within boundaries.
Yeah,
because
you can't tell everything,
Yeah, I can't tell everything. But even, just talking about an office remodel or something, I mean, they're there every day, and, they appreciate the information.
Yeah.
And, they want to be a part of it. They want to grow, with us. And so I think that you've got to, be a little transparent in order to get them to kind of buy in.
Yeah, and we've talked about that. The opposite of that, when you don't tell people what's going on or tell them the truth, that the stories that they make up are so much worse than what the truth is, right?
Yes,
yeah.
Yes.
I think that's true.
Yes.
Especially when you get that many bodies in a super small, compact space.
Women.
Yeah. No, I'm not going to say that because then you could
there
say
you
that and I'll nod. But yeah, I mean, I do think that creates, those easy conversations, right? It's just so easy to to be like, wonder what they're doing now, and everyone goes, I know, and all of a sudden, you've got a toxic environment, as you said. So, which you have the exact opposite of that up there. I want everybody to know I've been there many times, and what a joy it is to go into that office. Everybody is, it really and truly. I mean,
I love to hear that.
Well, it's true. Sometimes you go, in what I do, I go into a place and everybody's miserable and complaining. Everybody was super happy, and then they had a few complaints, right? Yeah. So that was a huge different. That's a very different, ball game.
Yeah.
All right. So what's the quality that you admire most in a leader?
Being approachable and just humble. I think someone that's willing to give and receive feedback, really helps everybody to be better. So,
that's good.
And not taking things personal.
That's a whole other talk show, right?
That's a whole other talk show.
Well, you're lucky you've worked with a couple of doctors that, Dr. Fox, Dr. Broman, that both check that box for sure. So
they're definitely an awesome support system. So.
All right, so this may or may not have anything to do with leadership. So this is just about Melissa sitting here. What's your biggest fear?
Gosh, my biggest fear.
I don't know, I should have teed you up on these questions. No. I'm testing these out so you can tell me afterwards if you think they're good questions or not. All right.
Honestly, like failure.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And it's not, I think I just have high expectations for myself. And so, and I think that kind of goes back to before where I thought I was, doing this job that I love, but I was working in a comfort zone because I didn't want to fail.
Yeah.
I didn't want to not be good at something because.
Do you think you're more risky or more risk averse now?
I am much more risky now.
Okay, so you'd take risks, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
I don't
Where
picture.
before I would do something, but it was more like I'm going to do it
because I know I can crush it.
Not behind the scenes, and then whenever I've got made some progress, then I'm going to be like, oh, and look at what Where now I'm like, I'm doing it, and I'm going to find a way, but first I'm going to just let you know I'm doing it.
So doing that in that way is inspirational, just so you know. Like when the people that in a leadership role that do something and everyone didn't see that process to get there, that's not inspiring because then it becomes not believable. Mm-hmm. And it becomes not that somebody doesn't feel like that they are relatable. Right? Because what makes that so inspiring is that when you watch somebody go through that and you go, oh my gosh, I watched that. And if she can do it, I can do it. That becomes inspirational. So we work, I know, with a ton of leaders in saying this, you've got to make it look easy, but also you've got to, let them know what your process was to get that done so that they realize, oh, I can do that too, right? There's a fine line there.
Yes.
So anyway, so I think that's good. So you're now willing to let people see that part of you that isn't sure you're going to accomplish it, but in the back of your mind you'll figure out how. Mm-hmm. That's called being vulnerable, by the way, right?
No. Yes.
Are you reading anything about Brene Brown?
I ordered her book on Amazon, and it should be on my doorstep today.
Oh my gosh!
I'm excited to read it.
Okay, after you read it.
I read the preview 14 pages on Google or whatever, and thought, yep, I have to read this book.
Yeah. So after you read it, come back. We're going to do another. Why we love Brene Brown is what we'll call it. Yeah. I literally have her book on the Audible, and I just listen to it when I get in my car now. It's not disco music like it normally is. It was NPR until the election, and now it's disco music. But now it is Brene Brown, like just that sanity that she provides. All right, do you have any big regrets yet? You're super young, so you're probably like, and don't tell anything too dark and deep here, but any regrets at this point?
Specifically to...
I don't know, anything.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
Well, you shouldn't have had the third glass of wine. I don't know, whatever comes on.
Oh, dear. Oh, yes.
Okay, so
yeah.
We're going to move
on.
There's
a couple of those stories.
You're too young for that question. I need to remember to not ask young people their greatest regret. That's for old people.
I have been at a wine event actually with the doctors that had too many glasses of wine. So there's definitely some moments.
Oh my gosh. So now we have to make that a learning moment now because you're talking about that because it's different now for you, right? In the role that you're in, you are an extension of the practice.
Yes.
And I think too many people don't realize that that is when that companies spend millions of dollars on their brand, and one employee can do something inappropriate and it reflects poorly on everyone, especially with social media and now everybody knows everything. So that is a big deal. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Physically, I wish I was a better runner. I wish I could sing.
Singing has been on most people's list, or piano, or musical instruments.
Yeah. I did try to learn how to play the flute in junior high. And
why the flute?
Because my grandmother played the flute. My mom kept it for all these years. Okay. And, here, you should try to play the flute. And that lasted just a couple days. I'm more of a...
I'd see like a saxophone, maybe.
Gosh, no? The piano would... I've been watching American Idol. The piano would be pretty fun to learn how to play, but...
would you ever go on American Idol? Even if you... I mean...
You know what? it would be super cool to say that I did it.
Yeah.
But I don't think I.
Yeah. I guess if you were super talented, you would. Like, we would make you. We would
if I knew I was just a really great singer or even an okay singer.
Yeah.
Whatever, but today, right now,
Yeah. Well, now you could just release it on your Facebook page and people would find you.
You know what? That's
hopefully.
True. Yeah. Ask everybody to share it.
Yeah. All right. So, do you have any favorite quotes or mottos? That's a hard one. So we could circle back to it if you want to. Yeah.
Because yes, I definitely do. They're all screenshotted on my phone.
I know, right?
Posted on my mirror or something like that.
Do you do that? Do you leave yourself notes, inspirational notes? What's your process on that?
I usually will see it like scrolling through Instagram or something like that and just screenshot it and it'll stay on my phone. I've taken some of those quotes and just put them on like a letterboard at our office because I think like, oh, well, if it resonated with me, then maybe someone else needs to hear it. But
I was stunned when I saw that. So I walked in and you have this, like something you'd go buy at Sam's or Office Depot, like a menu board, isn't it? Like you stick the letters on turkey sandwich, but instead it says like "Be amazing today" or something, right?
Yes.
I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
So
it just helps them to, as they walk out of our staff lounge, to see something positive, and hopefully that starts their day off a little bit better.
Yeah.
Just got to remember to change it every once in a while.
Well, you all have gone to a lot of effort to not only think of what are your non-negotiables and what you want your culture to be, but you do have it written down and you review it and you talk about it at your staff meeting. And I think that's a huge part of leadership is not just the exercise of this is lip service and what we want to be known for, and so everybody can see that we did it, but to live that out, right? Don't you think I think that's why it's such a cool place to work.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just being consistent. They helped us come up with those non-negotiables. They know that their reviews are kind of based off of what we've come up with, and we talk about it on a regular basis. So
awesome.
What that means, how can I be better?
So what's your big challenge right now? What are you really working on at this point? So you're about, almost a year in. What's the thing that I'm really working on this? What would that be?
I think appreciation helps motivate, and it sounds so easy to think like, oh, I appreciate all of them. But to really to be intentional about saying it or showing it, that sounds like so small, and I really thought that's going to be the easiest part of my job. But, just even,
Isn't that funny?
Someone was out of the office because their kiddo was sick. Just sending them a text. Hey, I hope so-and-so is doing better. All of those things.
That's huge.
People appreciate, and we get so busy in, our work lives and, our schedules after work that really remembering to reach out and say thank you, or I noticed that you did this or did that.
Makes a big difference.
It makes a big difference, but it's just, you really have to remember to do it. Be intentional about doing it.
So right now you're remembering it because it's new. So in 10 years, you and I will sit down and I'll go, remember all those amazing things you did in the beginning? You've got to keep doing those, right?
Yes.
Like it's hard to keep, once you start doing that, but it's required. I think the stat is something like 79% of people that leave a job leave because they don't feel appreciated. 79%. Isn't that crazy?
That's huge.
Yeah. I think that most people think, oh, it's because of the money. And money is like 8th on the list. It's not even in the top 5, right? If somebody is having a money conversation, like it's because of the money, it's because there's about 6 or 7 other things that didn't go their way, right?
Right.
And the money will keep them there if the money is enough. But it's those other things.
Not for long.
No, it's temporary. Yeah. Anytime I'm in, when someone goes, well, it's all about the salary. I'm like, no, it's really not. It's about, do I feel appreciated? Do I feel like anybody cares about who I am as a person? It's all those things that they might be touchy-feely, and people might go, oh gosh, that's not important. It's totally important. It's like it ends up being incredibly important. So that you're paying attention to that is awesome early on.
Circle back around to that, fear. I have really kind of like jumped in and just, I am like crave information and feedback and whatever. And I feel like that's made a huge difference. And I do kind of worry, like, you know, at some point, is there not going, you know, to be enough information or, you know, things like that. So I guess.
Gosh, that's
maybe,
a good fear.
I know, right?
Yeah, that you'll arrive.
It's scary.
Yeah.
And it's not even that I think I'm going to know everything,
Yeah.
but it's just, you know, am I always going to be able to have the information and whatever the resources to just keep things fresh and upbeat and
So you know what you'll do when you get to that point where you start to get a little bored, like you're on autopilot, is you'll really get good at mentoring other people, right? That's I think the next step for people in that, you know, position is at some point when you realize, oh my gosh, I've learned so much, and it's not enough for me to know it.
you got to share it.
Yeah, you got to share it, and that's, I think that's been the gift for me. So I'm a lot older than you are, and sitting here saying, you know, those little tweaks that you're making, conversations that we're having, I get way more joy out of watching you experience that for the first time or whatever than I do out of just knowing it, right? So that's what you'll do.
That's good. Thank you.
Yeah, you will, for sure.
At least now I have something to know it doesn't just stop.
All right, well, thanks. See, that was
Hey.
totally painless.
Yes,
You
it
crushed
was.
it.
Yay.
Good
Woo.
job. Good
Thanks,
job.
Tracy.
All right,
I'm
thank you.
excited. I've done this.
Yeah, well, thanks
I'm excited for the next
thank you
one.
very much. We'll do it again.
I'm excited to hear it too. So.